gentlemen, welcome to our today's session, which is about Risq 3.2 Uncovered, Updates and Practical Preparation. My name is Vasilis Dimitriadis. I'm Mintra's Global Ambassador. Before we start, allow me to say a few words about Mintra and Sqlearn, two major maritime digital training providers that they have recently joined forces to serve effectively and constructively the Greek and the global shipping market, focusing on the most precious element of our sector, which is of course the human capital. So it's not their partnership with the acquisition of Sqlearn by Mintra. It's not just a commercial partnership. It's all about bringing and contributing to a positive change to global shipping and to promote the digital transformation, especially on the human capital of our sector. So today's event is one of the many examples where Mintra and Sqlearn provide a platform to engage, to listen, to work together in order to contribute and provide the solutions that will support the shipping industry to respond effectively to the challenges. Today, with us, we have Mintra is strongly represented here with two colleagues at sea level. Is Mr. Sqlearn, is the Chief Commercial Officer, and Mrs. Sqlearn, Chief Technology Officer of Mintra, demonstrating the strong willingness to listen to the industry. And of course, I would like also to mention the fact that Sqlearn and RightShip are coming together. They are also joining forces, and this is a sign of testimony of how Sqlearn and Mintra advances safety and environmental sustainability, a stamp of approval by the industry, a direct validation of Sqlearn's and Mintra impact to this sector. So, it's often said that, and it's in human nature, of course, that we are reluctant to changes. And that is certainly true also in the shipping sector. But at the same time, shipping continues to evolve, and framework like Risq 3.2 reflect that evolution, shifting the focus from procedures on paper to how things actually work on board. Today, we of course aim to unpack what this means in practice and how the industry is responding. So we have gathered an online survey, and we have collected a number of questions, a number of concerns by the industry that they are already experiencing Risq 3.2, and it's my pleasure and privilege to moderate today's discussion with Mr. Kostis Andonopoulos, Associate Director of Eastern Mediterranean of RightShip, Mrs. Metaxia Psalti, Chief Operating Officer of NEDA Maritime Agency Company Limited, and of course with her other very important hat as a Vice Chair of Intercargo. And we also have with us in the panel Mr. Panayotis Nikiteas, DPA CSO and HSQE Manager of Maran Dry Aggelikoussis Group and Chairperson of Dry Bulk Center of Excellence. Panayotis will join us in a while as he's engaged in another panel next door. So I would like to invite on stage Kostis. Kostis has received your questions through the survey and is ready through his presentation to set the scene and navigate us to Risq 3.2, and of course he will try, and I'm sure he will do, to respond to your questions. Thank you.
So thanks to Sqlearn for organizing this, and Mintra, and thank you all for taking the time to come here and listen to us. So I'm Kostis and I'm representing Risq in the region since 2022 and still going strong with your deep love and affection. So let me just let's look at some trends related to our industry. Okay, 2025 data, 4,500 of incidents reported to our platform, including 232 fatalities. And of those 4,500, 1,300 were pretty serious. So there's still quite a long way to go. If we look at, just look at the numbers, I mean the proportions, look at the proportions. If you look at the gas sector and at the tanker sector, and then you look at the bulk carrier sector, you see that in all three segments of incidents, fatalities, and PSC detentions, we have 2 to 3 times larger numbers in the dry bulk sector. Okay, that's another thing to keep in mind. Also, we can see that there are some different points of view. 73% of the charterers claim that safety records and investments in risk reduction solutions significantly or critically influence chartering decisions. And 73%, the same number of owners and managers, claim that they exceed compliance and safety. And in 67% in crew welfare. At the same time, 60% of the charters say that due to commercial pressure and tight profit margins, this restricts their ability to choose over high ESG standards. And 53% cite short deadlines or urgent delivery demands. Okay, so this is the environment. So what do we have? We have a supply chain with different stakeholders, different priorities and requirements, and little time for fast decisions. And at the same time, this is on the backdrop of economic pressures and legacy constraints. So, some of the acting forces at the moment are the geopolitically driven induced disruptions, which end up in longer voyages and high people risk. The seafarers' availability and quality. We have a shortfall of 100,000 officers for our industry in the immediate future. That's a very big issue. And at the same time, ports and terminals are tightening the controls and try to standardize due diligence and pre-arrival date of the ships. This is what we see. So the takeaway from this is that actually the winners are those who can demonstrate control clearly, consistently, and early. That's what we understood through our interaction with all the stakeholders. So what good looks like in this high-pressure system? Owners and managers, they have to demonstrate readiness, not reactivity, agility, consistency, and focus on high-risk controls. And the charterers have to have clear expectations, explainable decisions, proportionate response, and earlier assurance. The shared outcome is fewer delays, lower burden for the crew, and more predictable commercial outcomes. Now, what do we do in Risq? We are a platform where we combine data, in-house and outsourced expertise, technology and partnerships in order to provide a due diligence process to the charterers. So, let's see what is a Risq inspection. Risq inspection is a risk-based inspection regime. So the purpose is to identify safety, environmental, operational risks that may not be fully captured through statutory or class surveys alone. So I have to remind you that Risq was created on the back of 6 very bad incidents around the coasts of Australia, where 100 seafarers they lost their lives. And the Australian government performed an investigation, which was dubbed the Ships of Shame. And this investigation concluded to the following: that the minimum requirements of flag, class, and insurance are necessary, but not sufficient conditions for quality of ship management. And the second thing was that the charterers, at least in the dry bulk sector, they had a very narrow view on the risk they undertake when they fix a ship. They were concentrating on the object vessel rather than the rest of it. And the rest of it is the people on board and the people ashore, the management. Okay. So, what do risk-based inspection regimes do? They try to identify systemic and operational risks beyond minimum statutory compliance, as I said, and address gaps between documented compliance and actual shipboard practices. And this is where we have usually the problem. And promote continuous improvement in safety, environmental protection, and risk management. So, what is Risq 3.2? Is used by reactive inspectors to conduct. It's a questionnaire, first of all, a questionnaire with a guide to inspection attached to it. So it's used by our inspectors to conduct objective, uniform, and systematic shipboard inspection. Okay? And it's a compilation of industry regulation and industry standards. That's the differentiator by a class or a statutory inspection. And recognized recommendations. So you see, you have 2 layers. You have the regulations, which is the minimum standard, and then you have best practices and recognized recommendations. And that it's designed to assess actual shipboard practice and the gap between the documented SMS procedures and real shipboard implementation. That's the main thing, that's the point. So, some questions that people tend to ask me from time to time, so I compiled some of them here. What's the process of selection of new inspectors, and what is the training process? So the selection criteria is in accordance with the training, test, and accreditation guidelines. Include training delivered through an online LMS with about 40 training videos, assignments, written and oral exams. And participation accompanying inspection. So the new inspectors are accompanied by seasoned inspectors as a guide. And of course, we audit them from time to time on board. And they have to go through refresher courses every 3 years. So that's one question that I get very often about our inspectors, and here's the answer. How can ship managers give feedback for the inspectors, and how this feedback is used? After the inspection, you get an automated email where you have a link to provide feedback. The second route is through an email to risq@risq.com. And we conduct reviews of feedback received, and the negative feedback is always investigated. Okay? And we follow up both with the operator and the inspector. Unfortunately, we don't get very often feedback. I mean, and we encourage everybody. Everybody of you who know me, you know very well that I encourage feedback, because we really need it. We cannot act unless we have feedback from your side. And how are we auditing inspectors? We perform internal audit prior to accreditation, random audits, and in response to negative feedback, as I said before. What about the reviewers? Because the inspector is registering the findings, but the decision is made by a reviewer within RIGE. So what about those guys? We audit them prior to accreditation. We perform random audits, conducted in accordance with the audit plan that we have. We have minimum 2 weeks training with a senior superintendent or line manager to ensure consistent approach, and we provide some guidelines, and we audit them from time to time by randomly check on their reviews of the inspections that they perform. And that the reviewers are trained to tag each finding with a risk level, okay? Medium, low, high. And this is achieved through a structured trickle-down training approach from the line managers with a guideline. That's how these guys are trained. So about their accreditation, they have oral and written exams, and about 11% fail in the oral exams, and about 28% or 1/3 fails in the written exams. So it's not easy. Okay. We have a network of inspectors all around the world, about 240 of them. Whatever is orange is where we have inspectors. And this network is expanding by the time. Now, let's look at the data related to the inspection. The value proposition of the risk inspection is that it reduces risk. It prepares the crew, because crew gets more aware, more prepared, more trained. It's an independent view on the vessel by a third party, which is useful for the operator or the owner. And the inspections are comparable data points. They're not like a portion control inspection where every regime has a different, let's say, approach or framework, or even different inspectors have different framework. And what I've compiled here is some data. 2025, all bulk carriers and general cargo vessels above 14 years of age, which is the bulk of the vessels that we inspect. These are 27,752 inspections on 9,549 ships, with average deficits of 3.5 and 5.8% detention ratio. The vessels that they had at the time of the inspection, they had, of the port control inspection, they had a valid RightCheck inspection, they had 1.9 findings. That's half of the average of the group. The vessels that have never been inspected by RightCheck, they had 4.6 findings. That's a lot more. And the vessels that have been inspected by RightCheck but had an expired inspection, 2.2, still less. So yeah, when we know what's going on with port-state control. I was also managing ships. I was not always with RightCheck. I was managing director of a shipping company. I know what's going on the port-state control. It's not always a clear game. But looking at 27,000 or 28,000 inspections, it's a large number. And large numbers tend to tell the truth. It's a statistical reality of this. So there is some value. Now, let's look at 3.2. How did we arrive to the 3.2, from 3.1 to 3.2? We consulted 22 industry associations. Especially here in Athens, I organize once a year a weekly, a full week discussion. I bring the head of inspection from Australia, and there are people from all the companies, and we discuss the inspections. And this is where we get tremendous feedback, okay? And this feedback influenced the new version. So we received 242 feedback points from this seminar, from other engagements, and from Intercargo. This feedback was an engagement with 550 owners, ship managers and owners. And we received feedback either through structured discussions or through direct email at the Risq mailbox, which you can always do, and please do. So, that's the process that we have. What are the elements of the key, let's say, elements of the new Risq? It's enhanced. It has a bit more clarity, safety and regulatory alignment to different new regulations that are coming, and best practices. There is more emphasis on training, stevedore safety, and environmental systems. And it's feedback driven, as I said, and on the back there is Annex A, which shows you all the differences from the different versions. And it has also hyperlinks in the industry guidelines that these are the constituents of the new Risq. So you can find immediately the regulations and the standards. Now, 5 key changes. Stevedores. initiated by an incident on a Berge bulk vessel. And it's all about how to monitor the stevedore operations on board. And we collaborated with some Greek operators to understand the nuances of the stevedore practice, etc. I'm sure everybody, you have in your mind Pοσειδωνια and some crazy places like that, which are difficult to handle. Enclosed spaces, typical issue. High risk, it's very high risk because we have many casualties still. And the IMO resolution on January 26 clearly states that the content of training and clears the gaps of previous resolutions. So we follow that. Safety officer inspection, it's a crucial role, so we elevated this role inside this version of the Risq. And we ask a specific checklist to be available for the safety officer according to the standards of the company to check accommodation, main deck, machinery spaces and forecast areas. And the aim is to identify issues. Okay. Superintendent inspection by 2 disciplines, marine and tech, every 6 months. We look for a systematic inspection that improves the system and must generate a report. The fact that somebody was on board doesn't really give the full picture. There has to be a report which generates something. Okay? And the stop work authority. These are the 5 main changes. All right? Another thing is that the time on board was reduced by removing 30 questions. The average time we expect that's going to reduce by 2 hours. We started the inspection, the new 3.2 in force was end of February, so we still don't have enough data, but it looks like the average time is dropping, and I'll show you that in a moment. So, for the future, we are looking to change the architecture of inspections in order to reduce the time on board. Because for us, and for the whole industry, a very important issue is the burden on the crew. And we want to do something about it, and we're looking at different ways to do that. Already, if you do hybrid inspection, which means that you upload 67 documents before the inspection, 30 of those documents can be reduced on the next inspections. So you don't need to upload them every time, and we don't need to see them again and again. It's done. So this is already in force. Now, let's see some data to identify trends and recurring observations. So these data refer to 5,700 inspections, February 25 to February 26. And these inspections were done over 950 different companies, vessels by 950 different companies. So, standard inspections were performed, there were 4,534 on ships by 832 different companies, with average findings per inspection of 19.5 and about 14 hours average inspection duration. The hybrid inspections were on 1,200 vessels about for 380 companies, average findings 18.3 and about 11.3 hours average inspection. Now, so we have done in between February, if you see the square at the middle, February 26 to early May 26 or now, the period of, very small period of Risq 3.2, we performed 1,457 inspections. And you see that the average findings per inspection dropped to 17.3, and the average hour of inspection dropped to 12.77. Out of the inspections of last year, the 5,500 inspections, 93 of the inspections were rated acceptable, and only 7% of the inspections were rated unacceptable. Most of them happened in discharge operations, some of them in loading, bunkering, and other activities. So, 45% at that time received 12 months validity, 12% 3-month validity. 81% received from 6 months and above. Okay. Now, sometimes people tell me, you know, we small companies, we cannot, we are dry bulk operators, pure dry bulk. I remember I had a friend, he has 3 ships, and he was scared about his first inspection. And I told him, don't worry, you're a good company, you're going to manage well. They did their first inspection. 4 low risk findings. Small company, 3 vessels, family company, down in Piraeus. Their first inspection, 4 low risk findings. A medium company with 15 bulkheads. Again, a friend of mine, the managing director. Scared. He sent me messages, we are ready, we have taken a shower, and all these jokes, you know. They had their first inspection, 17 low risk findings. These are pure dry bulk operators. What does this tell you? It doesn't matter whether you're small, big, medium. If you are prepared, you can do it. No problem. No problem at all. And I see the other side, people that they haven't had any inspections, pure dry bulk operators. They call me at their office, I explain to them what they have to do. They kick the can down the road, and they have their first inspection, 40, 50 findings, failed inspections. You know it's coming. So, just be prepared. Now, getting prepared, what does this mean? Remember, what is risk? It's a risk-based inspection assessing shipboard operations and goes beyond regulation and includes best practices. So, don't think that because you follow the regulations, you can perform well on a risk-based inspection. It's comparable to CDI or SIRE, not to PSC or class of flag inspections. Okay? Very important is that, okay, the procedures are documented, but it has to be followed. I mean, for example, we see very often enclosed space entry. People have ticked the whole form of the permit to entry, and they say, for example, we have measured the atmosphere, but they don't have equipment to measure atmosphere, but they tick the box. That's a big issue. That shows that it's just a game, it's not really a, yes, okay. When I was also managing director, I had the following strategy. I was saying, okay, whatever it's useful from the regulators, we have to adopt. Whatever we have to do, but we're not really in a position at the moment, we have to manage it, and then it's okay, we don't do it. Whatever it's science fiction, we don't do it. But some things which are very essential, you have to do it. So, how do you prepare? Update your SMS procedures to align with risk. Train the crew. The biggest, you tell me, because this is easy to say, but difficult to do. I understand. There are means, like for example, training material by Sqlearn or other companies, etc. You can do that. There are ways to do that. Okay. And ensure spare parts availability, maintenance, and adopt the best practices. So, we have to remember, RIGIP is looking at 3 pillars: people, plant, process. I don't have to tell you why we have to look at people. Okay, this is very important. I was telling my seafarers, you are the company. I'm just a signature. You are loading the vessel, you are navigating the vessel, you discharge the vessel. I'm just a bloody guy with a suit putting a signature. I'm nothing. You are the company. So this is very important. And when I was going to visit my vessels, I never paid attention to the vessel because I've seen the vessel by reports, pictures, superintendent visits. I didn't care at all about it. I knew the vessel. I wanted to see them to understand what they think. Okay, that was the important thing. Plant. Okay, yes, the people are on board. When you see insulation soaked by oil, or cordon in the pipes, etc. You understand that the culture on board regarding maintenance is very low. And why procedure matters? It's not the paper exercise, because I know very well that very soon an AI system will prepare all the forms for the contract of the captain. Then the oiler from the engine will come and just make them dirty with his hands. So when the inspector comes on board, they will say, oh, very good, all the forms are here and they have been filled during the job. Everything is fine. So we're going to have the battle of AIs. Well, the problem is that, for example, if, let's say we have a form for working aloft, and it's not filled right. But then you have to ask the chief officer, the boss, okay guys, how did you organize that? Did you discuss, did you have made a risk assessment before you did this very dangerous work? That's the main thing. So, how do we prepare for rights of inspection? Safety officer inspection, the safety officer on board. He has to be trained using risk-aligned checklist to inspect the vessel. The superintendents, they have to do the same thing and prepare a report. Internal audits by the company, use elements from risk requirements in your audit checklist. Arrange in-house training. As I said, there are many possibilities to arrange training now. And start your preparation at least 1 month before the inspection, especially if it's the first time. Okay. Application time frame. Recommended 14 days, but you can do it even 7 days before. You receive reminders at 60 days and 30 days. And you can do hybrid inspection or standard inspection. That's the main thing people use. The hybrid is about 8 to 10 hours, and the average about 10 to 12 hours. How the validity of your inspection is being calculated? What is validity for the people that they don't know? Because it's a risk-based inspection. Depending the nature or the severity and the number of findings you have, the next inspection will happen either in 12 months if the inspection is very good, the results are very good, or in 9 months if they are good, or in 6 months if they are average, or in 3 months if they are not so good. And sometimes if there are very serious issues, the inspection can fail. So what affects the validity? The total number of findings, the quality of the closeout documents, the investigation that you do if you use 5 whys, things like that, preventive, corrective actions, the severity of the findings, and until recently, and there will be an announcement this week, there were some findings which are considered showstoppers. I mean, το gela delta δεν έχει φουγάρα, something very serious, for example, okay, that will render the inspection unsuccessful. So we cancel that, no more. We rolled out this practice enough time to understand that this poses some commercial issues to the operators, so we decided to just name those high-risk findings. Okay, that's a good news. So let's look at the sections of risk that generated the highest risk number of findings. Okay, ship-to-ship operations, section 17 accounts for 17% of the findings. Okay. Now, if you look at the tanker industry, which is highly regulated, especially in this matter, in the S2S, we still have very high number of incidents. Imagine what can happen in what is happening in the dry bulk industry, perhaps. So there is an initiative by Intercargo, which was supported by Risq, in order to develop the code. I think we'll have the opportunity to discuss a little bit further that down the road. So Implement the advice is implement the intercargo ship-to-ship transfer guidelines for bulk carriers. Ensure vessels are properly prepared for inspection if they intend to participate in or already involved in STS operations. If you haven't done any, if the vessel has not done any STS operations or is not, they don't intend to, there will be no discussion about that. As this is a specialized area, consult subject matter experts where required in order to prepare for that plans, etc. For any questions, please contact Risq email regarding that as well. Now, section 14, general appearance, 10% of the findings. Condition of deck lights, portable cargo lights, deck piping systems, weather, watertight doors are usual things. Again, about 90%, 99.3% were at ISM, pilot ladder, gas burning and cutting controls, life water rescue boat, PPE matrix, enclosed space entry, safe means of access. Section 3, navigation, 8%, master pilot exchange, maneuvering characteristics, master standing orders, parallel indexing, defective navigation equipment, inadequate passage planning, and bridge manning levels are usually the findings involved. Hatch covers, section 9A, and lifting appliances, 8%. So safe operation of hatch covers, condition of quick acting cleats, including washers, and condition of rubber sealing arrangements. Usual things. Section 10, mooring operations, 7%. Compliance of mooring lines, condition, winch breaker rendering tests, selection of stoppers, and securing of lines. Section 13, machinery, 7%. Engine room cranes and other lifting appliances, plant maintenance, workshop condition, insulation, maintenance of auxiliary agents, matrix, and record keeping. 7A, fuel oil management, 6%, analysis, banking procedures, and bunker line pressure testing. Section 2, certification personnel, 5%, class surveys, work and rest hours, drug and alcohol, and training for including the safe handling of solid bulk cargoes. Now, let's look at the top 10 high risk. Enclosed space, the largest, winch break rendering, work and rest hours personnel, permit to work, lockout, tag out, inadequate position fixing, correct or no parallel indexing, insufficient and calibrated personal gas detectors, means of access, lack of underkill clearance calculations and air trap procedures, poor or defective condition of life posts, life rafts, etc., and condition of boilers, air compressors, air conditioning, refrigeration systems. The red ones are the really serious ones, and the rest are less serious. Enclosed space entry, winch break, lotto, gas detectors, and means of access. And the rest are, let's say, of less severity but high risk as well. Look, these were the showstopper findings of the last year. But forget about it, no more showstopper findings. So let's go to the next one. Closeouts, what we look for. People ask me about that. Closeout reports from RIGEP are required for incidents, post-aid controls, feedback reports by terminals, and RIGEP inspection findings. What we want to see is that the fault has been corrected, the fault will not occur again, and similar faults will not occur again. Very simple. And they should include root cause analysis, preventing, linked to each other. Good preventive actions means that there is a responsibility shared between the ship and ashore. It's not only the ship, okay? The intention is not to blame the ship all the time. So there has to be some shared responsibility with the shore. They have to cover, the preventive actions have to cover process, plant, and people. So all three pillars of the system. That they have a lasting effect, and that will prevent similar issues. What that looks like, for example, you have this situation where the crew were observed working oversized without a fall protection of buoyancy ends, and you receive something like about the root causes, human factor, crew involved in gangway ringing not use the required fall protection equipment while working outside ship's handrails at height, blah blah blah. Organizational factor, on-board supervision did not effectively verify compliance with PPE, etc. And system factor, familiarization and practical reinforcement with PPE matrix were not sufficiently embedded in routine deck operations. If you look at these causes, they're all ship-focused. Nothing for the office. All it's about the people on board, as if they are the only people that have a problem. Okay. Preventive actions. All crew to complete refresher training. Masters and chief officers to verify fall protection element. A fleet safety communication to be issued. Where is the shared responsibility? Where is the future protection? What about the process? Or what about protection for other activities? Okay? Why routine structural inspection not adequately identify deterioration of the gratings, okay, or at the crane? Why defects were not noted? Why other access controls in place considered okay? Why inadequate risk assessment applied? Why risk perception is too low? Very important. People have to understand the risks. If they don't understand the risks, then we don't have anything else to talk. That's the main thing. PMS did not specifically highlight close monitoring of crane access platforms, because PMS tasks were too generic. They were not ship specific, for example. So, root causes identified were safety awareness and plant maintenance system. Okay. Root causes, preventive actions. Further instructions provided to support leadership team. Okay. Risk assessment training to be revised, safety officer training supplemented, PMS tasks were made more specific, and PMS permission and task amendment procedures revised. That's okay. That makes sense. So, summary. What is a good closeout? The fault has been corrected and evidence of correction is included. The fault will not occur again. Preventive actions that address shared responsibility, future protection, processes, and protection for other activities is included. And similar faults will not occur because preventive actions are based on effective root cause analysis. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Special reference to the man behind Sqlearn. This is Spiros Goumas, the person that established Sqlearn, the person that initiated also the partnership between Sqlearn and Risq. Thanks, Spiros. So, turning now to our panel discussion, and I would like to welcome Panagiotis. I understand that he survived from a previous panel and now he's with us. Yeah. So, was this mentioned that what is very important is feedback from the industry. And of course, when we are talking about procedures, there's always a gap between procedures and the real on-board execution. So, how your organization received Risq 3.2? How was, what is your first, takeaways from this very first few months of experience? I would like the lady of the panel with the great name and Axia to open the discussion and share your experiences from your organization.
You like the name? You got that. Okay, for us, I will start with Risq first of all, and not Risq 3.2. We were from the lucky ones, having to operate both tankers and bulk carriers under the same DOC, which meant that we had procedures from the tankers industry, which was under a vetting regime for many years. And for this reason, we did have a lot of procedures there which covered partly Risq. Obviously, we had to make risk assessment, gap analysis to see exactly what was missing from the Risq, and thereafter with Risq 3.2, with our procedures, and then make management of change and address all the issues that we had in order to comply with Risq. The thing is that procedural was where we were almost there. The problem was, as you rightly said, both of you, you mentioned that, it is different what you have as procedures and what is being implemented on board. And there was a good reason that, particularly on the bulk areas, it wasn't implemented. And the reason was that there was no police. We were not enforcing the implementation because there was no vetting regime at the time. So actually what we were missing and what we had to cover with Risq and Risq 3.2 was to ensure that the seafarers were aware of our procedures and they were implementing them. So we actually had to do a number of things, including training, familiarize them with all the changes that we made on our procedures, and do extensive training. But I guess that we were going to touch upon this subject later.
Thank you, Metaxi. What about you, Panagiotis? How have you received Risq 3.2 in your organization?
Certainly, very similar way like Nera Maritime did, got analysis, checking, and so on and so forth. The recipe is known by everybody who's here. When a new regulation comes up, we know the process, we know the very nice word about management of change and all these things. Allow me to add in the equation and in the effort that an organization has to exercise to make a change happening is to break the internal resistance when a change comes. I can tell you that the first thing that was discussed in every office around the world, another change, another revision, and all these things, and what BS is this and this and that, resistance and disagreement, and from shore side and seagoing side, that they had to stop their vacation to come for a rebriefing, for a retraining, for all these things. But let's, at the end of the day, the biggest resistance was not from the seagoing crews. The biggest resistance I see always is from even senior members of the organization trying to understand that systems, procedures have to be adopted and changed and all these things. Example, the stevedore safety. It is something that comes up with Risq 2.2, very forceful and all these things. I can tell you numerous discussions. This is stupid, who can control them and this and that. The biggest time we lose to manage people's reactions and resistance when things move. Thank you.
Well, we are always reluctant to changes, but if shipping is moving and is transforming, we have to move in parallel and make that change possible. So, Kostis, you mentioned in your presentation that it's not a matter of size, but from your perspective, what distinguishes the companies that are adapting most successfully to Risq 3.2?
I've interacted with, maybe, yes, more than 250 companies in Athens and in Limassol and Nicosia. And my conclusion to that is that, okay, if you have, it doesn't matter the size or the complexity of the company or the size of the group, etc. And I can tell you that in my experience, the highest quality ship management happens from small family companies, which are the bulk of the shipping industry. I would say more than 90% of the companies have less than 5 ships. Okay, that's the backbone of our industry. Now, it's a matter of like Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack Sparrow said, the problem is not the problem, the problem is your attitude to the problem. So he's a very wise guy, Jack Sparrow. So you have companies which they have mixed fleets, tankers, chemicals, gas, and bulkers, and these are the companies that naturally can handle better the new requirements for the dry bulk fleet, stemming from the charters. But aside this group, which has the expertise of the mixed fleet. If you take the pure bulk carrier owners, pure dry players, I can distinguish between the companies that they, as Panagiotis said, they embrace the change and they understand what they have to do, and the companies that, okay, they just postpone whatever they have to do until, yes, the inevitable until they hit the wall, okay? Yes, it is a strategy to wait until you hit the wall, but it has some consequences, and I would say that all the companies that listened, understood, and the principals grasped the change that's happening, they had very good results in the outset. And the companies that they just ignore it and they said, okay, we'll deal with that when it's going to be necessary, they had very bad results, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Can I say something here? The only thing that we need to take into consideration Risq first and the industry as a whole, is that we need to give time. Okay, because this happened very quickly in the bulk industry, and those that they were not prepared, the companies that they didn't have tankers or LNG and all that stuff, knowing about vetting inspections, they need time. We have a couple of years now, and actually the statistics show that there is, because it didn't show the improvement that the bulk carriers have made during the last years. And there are other industries which are worse than bulk carriers, we have to say. So what we actually need is for the seafarers to absorb the change, the offices to absorb the change, and give some time. We cannot expect the results that we have seen from the tankers industry within 30 years to see them within 2 years' time. This is absolutely impossible to happen.
I agree in all of the points by Metaxia, honestly. Myself, and I believe Risq as well, we recognize that the pace is too fast, that the time is compressed, and the biggest issue, the more difficult parameter is the seafarers, okay? And they're, I mean, I was in the tanker industry in the early 90s when SMS was implemented and site inspection regime started, and I remember very well, I mean, the fact how the people on board could not cope with that, and the people in the office, how the captains were reacting, saying, what the hell, you're going to tell me how to do my job? And how we, from the office, I was superintendent engineer at the time, we had to adapt from, I don't know, cutting the bulkhead inside the Ravenna port to let molasses pass from one tank to the other, to a new regime. So, yeah, it rings a bell. Anyway, so it is a journey, and yes, I agree with Metaxia. Sometimes the pace or the pressure is too high, and it takes a lot of effort to do that.
Well, thank you, Kostis. Well, in my very old university times, I learned that marketing is all about 4 P's. Today we learned from Kostis that this 3.2 is about 3 P's. It's people, process, and planning. So very relevant to the interventions. The first question is taking into account these 3 main pillars that are very important, and they need to align them. What kind of changes we have to make internally on our management show, or internal inspections and audits, and even on-board execution to meet the expectations. Of course, you mentioned Panagiotis did Lactas, but in your organization, what kind of changes you have already made or you are planning to make in order to fulfill and implement more effectively the Risq 3.2?
I will focus on 2 areas: the practical equipment, let's say, things that we had to do. The biggest change that 3.2 brought up together with stimulus safety was the enclosed space entry requirements that because of IMO MSC they had to be changed. So this was a big change, is a big change, and this had to be addressed very properly and structurally with equipment, with how we move from one era to another situation. was something that we had to do thinking as engineers. We have this equipment that does not measure this gas, now we need a new equipment that measures this gas and we will use it, so we had to, the engineers had to find solutions. The other thing that personally I fought for and I think we have succeeded as a company to do had to do with what already mentioned about the people and the breaking the resistance. And we thought that the traditional training does not help because it did not help in the first place. Why I'm saying this? We have seen that IMO came up with the latest MSC on the base because we have still fatalities on the base. So it means that the process was not implemented very well. So it means that the training of this process was not successful at the end of the day. And instead of IMO coming up with technical solutions and new design solutions and with sensors and trips and 1 million things that could have done to minimize close space entry fatalities, the same people, we have the same people on board that now they have to enforce a more stringent procedure. They have failed to implement the lighter procedure and now they have to enforce a more strict procedure. The same people. The vessel is the same, and the only thing we do is we give them a new equipment to play with. So how can we address this very difficult gap? And we thought, and we got the idea from an external organization through coaching. Because training is training. I sit you down and I tell you, you should do this, my child, and learn this and behave like this. Coaching is a completely different concept, and we realized internally as an organization that even senior people did not have an idea what coaching is and what differentiate coaching from training. And we set up a course about coaching and we got the superintendents to go through this course, and when they go on board they're trying to promote, as very well said, about the gap between reality and procedures and so on, to implement the procedures and actually make changes. So this was the other pillar that we focused on, making the change a reality.
Well, thank you. Building on Panagiotis' intervention, I understand that it's not about changing equipment or adjusting training, but it's also a matter of changing culture. So, Metaxia, what do you think on this?
100%. I agree with Panagiotis, and I agree this is a matter of changing philosophy, first of all. We were focusing on something else before, on maintenance, on what we knew, how to do it, and that was all about. Now we have the procedures and we have to follow procedures. We had the procedures, and the gap was that we were not following the procedures in the bulk carriers. That was the main thing that we had to tackle. And we did that, we do that. First of all, we had to hire a lot of more personnel on ashore. This is something that we have to mention. Suddenly our marine department from, I don't know, 6 became double. And this is the reason is that they have to focus on how they will change the philosophy and the culture on board the ship. They are doing cross-checking before and preparation for the right inspection, verifying that whatever we have as a procedure is there and is followed by the ship. And then it's a matter of training, as Panagiotis said. I mean, all the training sessions that we had to do, we did, but it is not working. And the reason is that because it is a traditional way of doing training, by presentations, by writing material, which is something that the seafarers are not following. So we also got into the, not idea, we finally ended up that the best way is by mentoring. We are saying that it is mentoring, not coding things, with persons that they are knowledgeable about their procedures, about what the risk requirements are and vetting inspection in general. And they have to go from one ship to the other ship, spending a lot of time not doing a superintendent's visit. This is a different thing for us. Focusing only on the job training with the risk by next to them as a requirement on what they have to do. Obviously, the inspectors, the superintendents as well, we have enlarged the checking list, including the risk requirements, and same with the safety officer. But this is something that they, in a way, they were doing it. Now they are doing it in accordance with risk. But otherwise, for changing the philosophy, we ended up that mentoring is the best. And the other thing that I have to say is that we have differentiation now on generations. We have the elder seafarers, we have the younger seafarers. Totally different thing. How an elder like me is learning and how my son is learning. We have to address this problem as well.
Kostis, do you agree that these are the main focus area from your interactions, and of course, what do you believe are still the missing gaps?
I fully agree with what Metaxi and Panagiotis said and the approach that they took, and I will pick up at the last point of Metaxia. Most of us have kids here, and my impression is that generational thinking is changing every 5 years. Every 5 years, the new people are thinking differently, completely differently. I mean, if we go back to the 11th century, between 11th century and 12th century, 100 years apart, people had the same life. They were going with horses, they were fighting with swords. In my lifetime, and I'm 59 years old, I've seen no TV, black and white TV, mobile phone, internet, AI, and all that, and there's more to come. So the impressions I get, the information, and the sensory overload that I receive is tremendous and incomparable with what was happening a couple of 100 years ago. So this affects the generations and the generational thinking. So methods applied in the seafarers of the past, where the ships were wooden and the seafarers were from steel, it doesn't apply anymore. So we have to think differently, and we have to approach these people differently because they are different people. And sometimes the gap between our thinking and their thinking is tremendous. And as shipping is a Jurassic period industry that moves very, very slow with a glacier's pace, let's say, we encounter these problems, and unfortunately we resolve them when we hit the wall, because the people on the helm, they are from the previous generation. So yeah, I fully agree. That's a problem, the people.
Well, the more and more we're discussing about the people, I think I'm more convinced that there is a need to rethink education and training, moving from the how to why. It's not just ticking boxes, but promoting more the critical thinking perspective. So the question is, what do you think we should do to ensure that our crews on board, they move from purely complying to the framework to feeling confident and more competent in applying the procedure? So, Metaxia, what do you think?
First of all, stop work authority. Since Risq is promoting it, it is a good thing actually, and we were saying this. True. Actually, we were discussing about stop work authority with the tankers fleet a long time ago before Risq made it a requirement. We need the seafarers to be able to discuss the issues and listen also what we are saying about lessons learned, and providing them all the data about the issues that we had overall as a fleet or as an industry, and then make them engage, discuss, and realize what the problems are and how they will resolve them in their mind themselves, to set the processes correct as we have them as procedures, but to have them in their mind. They need to listen, they need to be able to discuss, and some critical thinking, as you rightly said. And then it is all about how we will manage for the young generation to make them understand what we are talking about and what is required there. But things are changing so quickly, but I am really thinking every day how we will manage with the young generation. And I really can't find a solution yet. When we're talking about AI, we are one step too late. Everything we think, they are one step ahead. And I don't know how we'll resolve that. At the beginning, we were saying about simplification of our system, then we said to place AI, but still, we are not managing with them to the level that we should.
Yes, the more I think about it, I am really disappointed by the education system in our schools for our children. I have 3 of them. And I believe that the system now is based on an overload of information, and the same is on board. The same happens on board. Okay, it doesn't work anymore. I think that what we're trying to do on board is a glorified risk assessment exercise, and we call this SMAs, I don't know, whatever. It's a glorified risk assessment exercise. That is what I'm about. Which means we're trying to educate people to understand and manage risk. Instead of loading them with all that stuff, maybe we should go back and in first principles and try the basic things, make them understand, give them, instead of giving them fish to eat, let us teach them how to fish, okay? So let us train them to understand and manage risk from first principles. And that's what I think where we're failing. That's what I feel myself actually. That's my impression.
Well, I think Panayotis, I'm sure he will agree, but I would like to add 2 words on. So you can also comment this initiative, which is something that possibly is missing from our workforce nowadays on board, and also ownership and the sense of responsibility. So please comment on that in conjunction with what it should change when it comes to training.
Initiative, Do we need initiative? Do we like initiative? Or in reality, do you think shipping companies and the people sitting in the desks want the crew to have initiative? No. Unfortunately, no. This is the reality. We cannot talk about...
So there is a need to change culture, first up in the management.
Yes. Costa said we are living in a different century, perhaps. Initiative by the crew, it is something that is missing, and what is actually missing above initiative, in my understanding, is empowerment. There's no empowerment. And unfortunately, in today's era, in today's shipping, there is still fear. There's fear in the offices, there's fear on board. And this chain has to be broken sometime, sooner than later. Because now we depend on certain nationalities, for which nationalities or certain social parts of population that are willing to accept this fear because they have needs or because they take a better salary. They make a compromise. This will not be forever. Okay? So we have to be very, very well prepared to see what the future will bring and make really confrontational changes in the way we think and the way we see our group, whether we see them as our partners and part of the organization or as tools.
Well, I'm always trying to see the glass half full and not half empty. But what you are saying is a bit of if we have a crew that doesn't want to take initiatives and responsibilities, and on the other side we are also introducing AI and we are not using it wisely, then this might be a recipe for failure. We have to be super cautious.
Can I give an example? You are the master of the vessel and you are supported with AI and systems and SMS and procedures, and sometimes you are being told off because you did not do a risk assessment about this and then the next day you have bad weather or you have an issue with your engine and you are missing 10 miles from your new position, and then you receive an order, adjust and provide a fake position because we don't want any claims. How this will affect you in terms of compliance? So I am the one who is pushing you and say comply, but when this compliance has negative effects for me, then I will say, oh no, don't comply. So this is actually something that is being seen every day by the crews. This is consistency. This inconsistency that starts from top to bottom. And affects in reality how actually people behave and see safety.
Well, For me, any master on the ship or ashore is not about only navigating the ship safely. It's about motivating the people, that inspiring the people, or becoming also a person that will be there on their difficult times. And hopefully this is something also that we might also need to focus on training, how to change the skills of the people, that they have responsibilities in order to manage people, and not just to manage the vessel, but to manage first the people on board. But since you have the floor, in your capacity as the chairperson of the Dry Bulk Center of Excellence, I know that this initiative is trying to bring more consistency and standardization across the industry. So how do you see Risq 3.2 interactive with the Dry Bulk Center of Excellence, whether this is a complementary initiative or is just something additional? How do you see that?
There are clear synergies.
Okay.
Dry BMS is the equivalent of PMSA, BBC is the equivalent of the organization that runs the self-assessments in the oil tanker industry. Risq 3.2 is used to give a snapshot of an inspection of the vessel at a particular day and time with a particular crew. But Dry BMS is seeing this result as part of an overall organization, of the organizational safety culture overall, of how people in the office address and manage situations and processes, evolve and so on. So we're moving into a situation, into a condition where the person who makes a vetting decision, a miner, a charterer, a shipper, a receiver, is not only looking at a particular vessel and based on one particular inspection that perhaps was done 6 months ago, will now in the future, in the near future, be looking at the overall performance of the organization that is managing this vessel and some other vessels. I find this extremely positive, extremely modern. I find this very democratic, because it gives an idea that it's not only one vessel, and also it is a unique effort that for the first time and continues, Intercargo and RightShip are working hand in hand. And this means that ship owners, ship managers, RightShip, which actually represent charterers, major charterers, are working hand in hand in creating a new situation on the vetting status.
Thank you. Metaxia, I mentioned in the beginning that you are wearing another hat, which is the vice chair of Intercargo. And I do know, and this is always the case when it comes to ship-to-ship transfer, there is this operation entails greater risks. And Intercargo has recently developed ship-to-ship guidelines. So these guidelines, do you think that how they are connected to the Risq 3.2, how the procedures on training should evolve in order to meet both the expectations of risk and of course to reduce the risk that the ship-to-ship transfer is entailing?
First of all, STS operations in the bulk carriers industry were done for ages and in difficult places and ports as well, and not regulated as it was with the tankers industry. So RightShip saw the gap, and actually it was coupled with an accident that had happened, as Kostis mentioned, with Berge Motion a couple of years ago, where 3 stevedores died. And they actually took it up, and they inserted it as a requirement in the Risq 3.2. So it is a requirement. The requirement is, of course, to have some procedures about STS operations. On the other side, Intercargo also saw that there was no guidance, industry guidance for bulk carriers, and took this opportunity, and we have made those guidelines in order to assist all the operators, and not only the big operators, but also the smaller ones, and give them the guidance required in order to comply with the requirements of Risq. This is all about the guidelines and an assisting tool in order to enable the smaller operators and the bigger ones, whoever wants it, to formulate the procedures and standardize the STS operations. So first of all, what is missing is a standardized procedural aspect for STS operations, and then obviously is the training. Training on what you have written, being your procedures about STS operations, communications, how the roles, there are lots of things that they are required under the STS. The only thing that I have to say here is that we do have RISQ on one side and the SIP owners on the other side trying to formulate the STS operation, but this is not enough. We have on the other side hundreds of stevedore companies that they have to abide to what we want and they don't. And we have also charters that we also do not abide. And I have examples, recent examples, because we have set up all our procedures for STS and we are trying to formulate that and standardize that, and we still see charters that they actually don't want to put the standards to, sorry? They do not agree to those standards, and stevedore companies as well. So it is something, a burden that was given to the ship owners only, but it needs all the stakeholders there in order to make it work.
Clear. I think now it's time to turn to you to have a more interactive exchanges. So we are open to questions, clarifications. Please mention your name and...
Yes, I'm Captain Nestor Grigoropoulos from Sea Traders and Prominence Maritime, Mr. George Prokopio Group of Companies and Mission Prokopio. Congratulations for the excellent presentations, Metaxia, Captain Magneti. Regarding the ship-to-ship, I think that in order everyone to comply, we have to discuss about the BIMCO clauses. I think in the BIMCO clause there must be an amendment to address specifically how the ship-to-ship has to be conducted. The same way, like in tankers, where the clauses clearly mentioned as per intercargo, intertango guidelines. The same way has to be addressed also. Otherwise, the charters will not be forced, and they certainly will not be willing to proceed as such.
Nestor, allow me to say that this is a commercial thing which is really difficult to manage. We will certainly have the opportunity with BIMCO, and you can even not use BIMCO and have your own STS clause. The thing is that, as we know, I mean, as an experience from my company, we still try to change the RISQ clause, which is from the history back to when it was stars, and we are required to have a 5 stars, and the charters are still resisting and do not want to change.
Yes, but there's no other way unless it is specified in the charter party.
We have to.
So
this is up to us.
Even if I use the BIMCO clause, just because BIMCO is a generic term, but even in either in BIMCO or without BIMCO clause, something has to be on the charter party to let's say, to force the charters to follow the guidelines given by the intercargo. Now, concerning the vetting, as you very well said, to me it's clearly a matter of mindset. What has to change the mindset, and it has to do with how an organization perceives this Risq 3.2 and the vetting process. You have to do, other companies see it as a threat, other companies see it as an opportunity. So you do a SWOT analysis, you see where you stand. And I think, to me, especially bigger companies, has to see it definitely as an opportunity. The same way that happens in the tankers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, please. Can you speak louder or come in front, please, for all the others to...
We spoke earlier about mentoring and coaching towards the safety standards of rights. Okay, so what kind of training should the personnel that provides this coaching and mentoring have? Is this equivalent to the training of a rights inspector? Does Sqlearn provide such training?
Well, this is one of the reasons of today's event. Of course, Sqlearn provides training, but it's all about listening to the gaps, to what still needs to be prepared as training, what are the missing gaps in order to update the training to fit for purpose and to meet the standards. So the purpose of today's and the takeaways of this seminar is to see whether what we provide also as Sqlearn is fit for purpose, or we need to change certain things in order to respond to the new Risq 3.2 requirements. But I don't know if Kostis would like to mention this.
No, formal training is required, for sure, it's the basis. But as companies roll out different strategies, and we have heard two different companies that have converged to the same strategy of mentoring or coaching, you can call it both ways, which supplements the formal training and increases effectiveness. So if you want to hear more about that, my colleagues here can tell you.
You mentioned what training is required for mentors or coaches. Obviously, there are some about soft skills, and you need first. The selection is very important on who you are selecting to become a mentor. Not all of us can become a mentor, and that doesn't mean that I know the subject and I can pass the knowledge to others. So you need someone who has the ability to pass knowledge to others. You need to train him on soft skills, and you still require someone who is knowledgeable on your procedures and on the risk requirements as well.
Just to add that, as you said, Nestor, one solution doesn't fit everybody.
Yes.
We have Greeks, the other have Indians, the other have Filipino, some are 20 years with the company, some are brand new, some are 30, some are 50, so nothing really, there's no a copy-paste solution for everybody that can do that. So I suggest that, as you said, Vasilis, that the company approaches whoever they use as training provider and discuss where they want to go, and perhaps then they can find a path how they can get there. And certainly there is not only one path, maybe there are more than.
Agree 100%. Well, from the survey we have conducted online, it seems that there are a few questions, I guess, for you, Kostis. I think the first one is covered. What are the key updates introduced under Risq 3.2? You cover it. Let's move to the second one. Is a new Risq questionnaire update expected soon?
I think that everything is driven by the feedback. For example, if we do enough of inspections of Risq 3.2 and we see that there is a problem, which is raised by the industry or on the field, then we have to do some change. But it's not in our plan to do a change very soon, because continuous changes disrupt the people. I mean, you have to gather, let's say, a set of changes, implement them in one go. Don't change the thing every now and then, because people have to adapt every time.
So it's a matter of digesting to it.
That's right. I mean, it just started end of February 2026, so it's very, very...
Okay. How does the vessel inspection age trigger affect phase 3 and 4 inspections?
Yes. Now in July we are entering the 11 years. So after the 11th year, if the vessel has not done an inspection, then the score drops to 2 until such inspection takes place. Of course, for the vessels that they just enter this age trigger, if the operator applies before the birthday of the vessel, not before the 1st of July, the birthday of the vessel, for just a practical example, if the birthday of the vessel is the 15th of August, let's say on the 16th of August the vessel will be 11 years and 1 day old, then the score will drop to 2. And if you apply before that date for inspection, you get an extra 15 days on the safety score as a grace period. So that's how it works. And the next one is January 2027 at 10 years.
Well, the next question is about confidentiality. Inspection reports and submitted documents, are they fully confidential and can they ever be shared without the owner's consent?
At the moment, we don't share inspection reports with anybody else without the owner's consent. So the charters in the platform cannot see the contents of the inspection, neither the number of findings. They can only see the validity of the inspection, nothing else.
And last one, with the increased focus on communication, effectiveness, behavior, and safety culture. How does RightShip assess whether safety learnings and industry alerts are truly absorbed on board, not just distributed for compliance purpose? I think we touched a bit upon this, but...
We touched about that, and I think that the numbers speak. The number of findings are dropping on average, which means that something is absorbed on board. And the same is what Metaxia said before, is that the incident, we see a gradual improvement on incidents and process control findings across the dry bulk industry. So we are getting somewhere.
Well, any other questions?
Number 4. My name is Captain Kenan Kavakçı, from Turkey. I have had a pre-RightShip inspection in Sqlearn 1 month ago. During the inspection, we received directly 2 results without any owner requisitions or permissions. Is there any difficulties to region? This
You did the inspection for your ship, right?
Yes, the third parties, and we received the results, the deficiencies on time.
You received them?
Yes,
Yes.
I was on board.
Yes.
This means that our inspections report to submit documents fully confidential. Can they ever be shared without owner's consent?
Sorry, you are the owner of the ship, right?
It is the third parties, not owner. 14 deficiency
Yeah.
to share the chief engineer, captains during the closing meeting.
Yes. The inspector delivered the findings to the crew.
Yes.
This is what you mean?
Yes.
This is normal. At the closing meeting, they tell everybody what are the findings.
So I think we talk a bit about the culture, and of course, as part of our culture is to finish on time also. So I would like to invite Panagiotis, a final word, a message from you, Panagiotis, 1 minute.
Next to every requirement, to clearly identify and record if a documented record or procedure is required for this element. There is certainly a huge amount of ambiguity still if a documented evidence is required or not. Example, is the seafarer able to don an EBD? So, what am I looking on board? I'm looking at a paper that I have attended a course, or am I looking to actually ask the guy and show me how you do the EBD? So the more we move, like we did years and years ago, when we clearly identified this requirement requires a documented evidence in a procedure or records and so on. Perhaps think about that, and that will be my request. Will make life easier for the people in the comments.
Metaxia, your turn.
I don't have something to say, actually. I can say only to Panagiotis that we do have in the cargo quality panel and the working group, which is actually dealing with the versions on the new, the changes that we are going to propose to RightShip for the next version after Risq 3.2. Otherwise, I have to say that in my personal view only, Risq made a good change on safety. So I'm not against RightShip in that term. I think that it was needed and it only makes good. We need time though, as I said earlier, in order to ensure that it becomes our culture and we drive the industry in the future better safety statistics.
So Kostis, final words from you?
If you cannot avoid it, enjoy it. So, no, just joking. Just picking up from Metaxia's comment, there is improvement, and indeed, sometimes the pace is too fast. Yes, but usually what we have seen is that when people are getting out of their comfort zone, this is when real improvement happens. So yes, there's always a balance between where one side pulls and how much the other side can follow. So yeah, that's it. So from my side, we see results and we thank everybody who recognizes that, like Metaxia said before. Also, RightShip learns a lot from the process. It is a different RightShip than the RightShip of the past. There is a lot more dialogue, openness, interaction, and we also learn a lot of lessons in the process. And it's not only the seafarers or the companies, it's also us. So this is a mutual development. Thank you.
Being for 28 years as a regulator in shipping and negotiating 3 consecutive maritime safety packages, I must say that, okay, I know that it's in fashion nowadays to discuss about decarbonization and digitalization, but we should not forget that safety is a persisting priority, and we have to make sure that things are improving, and thanks to RightShip that drives this change, we are ready to make changes, we are ready to refocus on safety, because there are a lot of developments in shipping that we need to care about safety, and it's not just developing a new green non-fossil fuel, but also see every time the safety perspective. And the second element is, of course, the human, and of course not the human resources. I don't think it's the right word, but the human capital. I think the human element has to be approached as a capital for our companies, and we have to invest time on them and resources in order to support the real sustainable change in this sector. So I would like to thank Metaxia, Panagiotis and Kostis for their time, sharing the richness of expertise they have on this fascinating sector with us, and of course all of you for your patience and being a fantastic audience to inspire our panelists for this constructive discussion. Thank you very much.